And our next speaker is a doctor in mental health, an NHS campaigner, a striker with the junior doctors, a great supporter of ours, a People's Assembly dedicated supporter, and it's Mona Kamal.
Hello everyone. So as you heard, I'm a proud NHS worker in mental health. Being a doctor is an absolute privilege, and I'm even more privileged that I get to do that job in the NHS. The only system in the world that enables me to treat patients based entirely on their clinical need and not on what an insurance company thinks that their life is worth. On whatever measure you look at it, this government has failed the NHS. We have record waiting times. In 2011, a study by the Commonwealth Foundation found that the NHS was the best healthcare service in the world in terms of efficiency, cost and patient satisfaction. Years later, after a programme of unprecedented cuts and privatisation, the NHS is in the worst crisis in its history. We have record waiting times and rationing of services, closure of hospitals, A&Es and GP surgeries, and staffing cuts which have left our wards struggling to stay safe. We hear so many lies about the service being funded. We hear lies about the scapegoating of migrants and health tourists, which really, that burden is completely negligible. But the truth is, since 2010, under two Tory-led governments, we have had the largest ever sustained reduction in healthcare spending in the NHS's history. And under this government's sustainability and transformation plans, there is another round of cuts, £22 billion worth of cuts yet to come, with 19 hospitals and 24 more A&Es earmarked for closure. In the fifth richest economy in the world, this is a deliberate choice. A deliberate choice by this government to underfund the service and to run it down into the ground and privatise it. They cannot convince us that these cuts are necessary while simultaneously gifting tens of billions of pounds worth of tax cuts to the wealthiest and to corporations, and shamelessly bribing the DUP to keep themselves in power. These cuts have a human cost. I work in mental health, and that's really where some of the tragic human consequences of these cuts can be seen. I've sat in A&E departments with people driven to suicide attempts because they don't know how they can sustain themselves and their families after benefit sanctions and cuts to social care. Patients driven to relapses of their mental illnesses after being put through the indignity of work capability assessments. Children ferried hundreds of miles away from their families because there are no beds nearby to admit them. And whilst our services are rationed and our wards are shut, our patients are being left in hospital corridors. Now, I didn't know that my contempt for this government could get any greater until I heard them cheer as they voted to keep public sector pay cuts. How dare the likes of Jeremy Hunt and Theresa May try and score political points by heaping empty praise on my colleagues in nursing and then commit them to the indignity of food banks and poverty wages. I was one of the 50,000 junior doctors who went on strike last year to make sure the conditions I worked in stayed safe for our patients. And I can say that if and when my nursing colleagues go do the same and vote for industrial action later this year, there will be 50,000 junior doctors standing behind them in solidarity. There is an alternative to this barbarism, and every day we are getting closer and closer to it. I feel that change is coming. I don't know about you, but it is coming. Every day, this government is showing itself to be as weak and incompetent as they are callous. Over the last election campaign, we saw the power of our campaigning and our organising and the power of hope. We're almost there. It's incredible to see so many of you here today. We have to keep going until this government is forced out, and they must be. For every Grenfell death, for every welfare reform death, for every death of a disabled person being put through the work capability assessments, and for the patients who have been left to die in hospital corridors, we will continue this fight until the Tories are out.